Hi everyone, it's Eva. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then this is simply an update on what I've been up to for all of 2021. So I have been pretty much off of YouTube for most of 2021, and that really just came about because towards the end of 2020 I felt a call to really focus in on more in on my reading and my writing. And I write fiction. I primarily write novels, but I'll get to that a little bit later. And so I had to make a choice whether I was going to, sorry, there's a beautiful bird soaring in my sky above. So I had to make a choice whether I was going to devote my spare time to, the thing I love about YouTube and the YouTube tarot community, or doing more reading. And I've been doing the reading, so that's where I've been. I wanted to read more by women, both nonfiction and fiction, because I've transitioned from writing for young adults into writing for women. Women my age, around age 50, a little younger, a little older. So I wanted to figure out more of what was out there in that market and see kind of where I fit into the genre of women's fiction. And also just, I feel like I really had neglected to read nonfiction during the feminist movement, or I guess there's been different waves of feminism, so I kind of just wanted to get up to speed on some of that, and also dive more into works by people of color, both Americans and non-Americans. So I'll go quickly over books I've been reading, and then a little bit about my writing, and more about the decks I've been enjoying in 2021. And I just want to say I miss you all. I do miss what we have here on YouTube. I miss watching your videos and commenting more, and I know I'm here and there. I hit every now and then I hit someone's video, but I know I'm missing out on a lot of good conversations. There has been one going on lately on deck buying and addiction and compulsion and things like that I was stimulated by and wanted to maybe make a VR about. So we'll see if I get that done, but there are some really interesting conversations going on. I just wish I could partake more, and I wish I could listen to more of you. So I just want to say I'm happy to be back for this little bit. I probably won't be back a whole lot more this year. A video here and there maybe, and a comment here and there, but I really am grateful for what you all share, and I'm grateful you're all here to come back to when I have the time. So let me talk a bit about the books. So pretty much at the start of the year I started reading some Audre Lorde, and this is the only book by her that I have, but I know she has some other books. This one is a collection of essays, and yeah, I think it's mostly essays. I've jumped around some. I've read pretty much all of this section here. But I also have read some other ones further in. And I found that she does speak for me in several ways, despite the fact that she was a black woman living at a different time in my country, and she was a lesbian, which I'm not. But I have found, what she's saying really chimes a lot with me too. And I'm just really appreciating her wonderful way of speaking her truth and speaking from her heart. And then, let's see, I refound this book on my shelf. Actually, that's not true. How did it work? I forget now. I'm not sure what came first, but this is a book called Women Writing for a Change, and it is actually written by the founder of a school by the same name, Women Writing for a Change. And I had met the author years ago, about 11 years ago, at a book signing. She signed the book, and I was there with my two young daughters, letting them pick out books. And when I heard there was an author doing a book signing, a presentation, something like that, I missed her presentation, but I got there for to talk with her privately because everyone had left. And the funny thing is that everything she shares in this book, I wouldn't have been ready for back then. I didn't really read much of it back then. I was busy raising 5 kids, and the youngest one was an infant, I think. So I got it out recently, and I'm like, wow, she's talking about all the things that I have come to know through the tarot about masculine, feminine energies, and sacred circle, and women's, supporting women through. I don't know. That's not just through the tarot, but it's been part of my tarot journey. Women supporting women finding a voice. I don't know. Lots of things that I wouldn't have been ready for 11 years ago, but I'm definitely on board for now. And so she's a fellow writer who considers herself something of a social entrepreneur for helping to facilitate groups of people coming together to find their voice and speak their voice and write their voice. So I actually had written a poem the day I met her, and I meant to always forward it to her, and I never did. But now I'm in a class through this school online, and the facilitator has agreed to forward the poem to Mary. And it's all about how meeting her inspired me to get back to writing poetry and things like that. So and that was fun to kind of come back to it. I've been working my way through this book. And then, as far as fiction goes, started reading the third of a series that I enjoyed the first two books in this series, and I know the first one was made into a movie, which I also watched. All of that was a couple years ago. So I'm just kind of getting back into this series, and it's basically, the kind of women's fiction that I do enjoy, and it's not really too close to what I'm writing. This is more humorous and a little more lighthearted, but I enjoy that. So I've also been reading, Chitra, Divakaruni. I can't think of how her name is spelled exactly, so I may be butchering it, but she wrote The Palace of Illusions, and I forgot to bring that one from my bookshelf. But yeah, that one is so good, and I'm just ordered another one of hers called Queen of Dreams. And that one, Queen of Dreams, feels a little closer to what I'm trying to write. I can put her name down in the description box. But yeah, she's an author of Indian American background, and I'm enjoying learning from her perspective. And then the class I'm taking through the school I mentioned is studying this book here, Short Stories by Latin American Women, the Magic and the Real. And I was interested in this for three different reasons. First of all, I've been wanting to read more people outside my culture, so it scored on that. I've been wanting to read more of the voices of women, and it scored on that. I've been wanting to do more writing of different types, not just novels, but poetry and potentially short stories. And it's all about, the short story, so it's a good study on that. And finally, I've been curious to understand magical realism more. It's something I've sort of studied off and on over the last decade or so, that I've been back to trying to find my niche as a writer. And so this is all about magical realism, and it's one of those genres that's very hard to pin down. It's probably the slipperiest I've ever encountered. And I don't think I could really pull it off. It's not quite where I'm comfortable, but I felt like by stretching myself and trying to study it and write it more, maybe my writing would finally find the kind of the in-between the real and the mystical. Mystical is more what I'm going for. Let's see, and then I think that's it. I am reading a bunch of other books, but I haven't gotten very far into any of them to really talk about them much. I tend to do that. I figure out what mood am I in, and I also have books on audiobook that I listen to, which is harder to show, but I've been enjoying audiobook a lot. For things when I'm doing dishes or exercising. I have to do physical therapy, so down on a mat, just stretching and stuff like that. I like to listen to audiobooks, taking a walk around the block, that sort of thing. Let's see, that covers reading, and then, writing. This class has got me writing different things. Each week we write for I think it's 15 minutes. We do a fast write. It's sort of encouraging us to try our hand at short story writing over the course of the 8-week class, which I'm trying to do. But I'm mostly still drawn to my novel, which is my first adult novel after having written the two for teens. And I was trying to do a 3-month, drafting of a rough draft, where I would basically try to get, I think it was 65,000 words in 3 months. It's about half of what Stephen King does. So I thought, okay, maybe since I'm part-time at this, maybe I can do half. Maybe it was, I forget. And that was an old statistic about him anyway, so who knows what he's doing now. But the point was, I kind of got stuck trying to write scenes for a story that I didn't quite know where it was going. And I found that, and I've heard another author say this, every book you write takes a different process. It sort of has its own mind, and you kind of have to move with what the book demands of you. And this book has demanded that I plot it out a lot more than I typically do. Not minutely, but enough that I really know what's going to happen down the road. And so I'm not spending all this time in one scene wondering how much to say about this. Is it, when is that going to develop? So that's what I've been mostly working on, and I've been using my cards a lot to do the plotting. I use Lenormand for a lot of the scene arc, and then I pull out my tarot to kind of follow different characters. And we'll get to decks last, but not too long from now, because that's what I want to talk about the most. Let's see. Writing, poetry. I'm trying to do a little more poetry. It's really cathartic to just sit with words and sit with an idea and just find specific words for them. And I'm less picky about what my poetry sounds and looks like. I don't know if I'll ever do anything with it in a publishing sense. I would like to read a lot more. That's another thing. I am reading a lot more poetry too. I got the literary witches deck early this year, and I haven't used it a lot, but I am finding it inspiring, and it's like a buddy, this deck, we're buddies. I feel close to the women in there. I love reading. I also got the accompanying book that was published separately in hardback, and sort of, there's not a lot in the book, unfortunately. It doesn't go into great depth, but I can take what I find there and then do more research on the internet and take notes and so forth. So I am really enjoying learning more about these different women authors that are portrayed there. So yeah, basically, let me check my notes real quick. I want to say briefly that some of you may remember my background and kind of what tarot has done for me so much. It has to do with sort of finding my way out of church and back into more of an authentic spiritual path for myself, and healing a lot of the stuff that my background did to me, and kind of left me feeling banged up. So I had a moment earlier this year when it kind of all clicked, what it is I'm working with, what my spirituality really could be called. For instance, I used to wonder if it's, humanism or mysticism or witchcraft. Where do I fall? And I don't think it has an exact name. I just call it, I don't even really call it anything, but it's like I respect the world's soul. And I'll explain what that is in a second, but it's basically when I realize that I'm trying to translate stories from the world's soul into story. I'm trying to translate the world's soul into stories. So what I mean by world soul is essentially a real regard for nature as it is, the scientific and phenomenal facts of nature, and then how that has inspired humans to create wonderful art and stories, and various myths, and how they all sort of relate the world's soul to us in various ways. How the cosmos works, and what we keep learning about it, and how that inspires us. And then for me, it's all then translated in a more mystical sense. It's translated not through facts or science, but in story that allows for mystery. So there's real tangible connection to nature and people and art, but there's also this sort of magical realism or mystery or mysticism that keeps it mysterious and sort of evokes awe. And I'm going to do that through different people in different types of relationships and working things out in their own healing process, basically. That's not a very good way to say it, but I'm also really interested in where spirituality and sexuality converge, because I know with my path and a lot of America's history, our Puritanistic history and a strong religious flavor to a lot of our culture sort of keeps those two at odds with each other. And I have found that writers like Audre Lorde, she has a wonderful essay in here called, let me see if I can find it real quick. It's not the last thing I was reading, but Uses of the Erotic. Let's see, the erotic as power. And she makes just an excellent argument. I mean, I felt like she said what I think right there. She says, it has become fashionable to separate the spiritual, psychic, and emotional from the political, to see them as contradictory or antithetical. What do you mean, a poetic revolutionary, a meditating gunrunner? In the same way, we have attempted to separate the spiritual and the erotic, thereby reducing the spiritual to a world of flattened affect, a world of the ascetic, who aspires to feel nothing. But nothing is farther from the truth, for the ascetic position is one of the highest fear, the gravest immobility. The severe abstinence of the ascetic becomes the ruling obsession, and it is one not of self-discipline, but of self-abnegation. The dichotomy between the spiritual and the political is also false, resulting from an incomplete attention to our erotic knowledge. For the bridge which connects them is formed by the erotic, the sensual, those physical, emotional, and psychic expressions of what is deepest and strongest and richest within each of us, being shared, the passions of love in its deepest meanings. So that's kind of what I aspire to present through story, keeping the world soul in mind. I don't know if that explains it very well. Also, I am studying shamanic practices a little bit. I don't really feel like I'll ever feel comfortable calling myself a shaman or shamanic, but of all the different practices out there, I feel like that's a little bit closer to what what appeals to me. So instead of, say, witchcraft or spell casting, or herb lore, things like that, I'm more drawn to discerning spirit through nature and connecting to spirit through, say, meditation and journeying and storytelling, basically. So let's move to decks. I'll start with the decks that I use for writing my novel, just because I've been working with these the most all year. But I have a few others I'll talk about as just general favorites. So I find that I really like to have a deck that works for a certain character. And so when I want to ask questions about that character's path, I pull out that deck. And this character, this is actually my protagonist, she actually gets 2 decks because, she goes through various changes and whatnot. But I really like the Hush Tarot for her, partly because it has that earthy yet sensual and mystical qualities to it. It's a little hard to explain this deck. If you've ever looked at it, you've probably been as puzzled as I was, because it doesn't, really resemble like any other type of deck, right? It's that much does its own thing. But that's also why I like it for storytelling, because it has fewer associations for me that way. And I really just get this out for this story. I haven't used it a whole lot for myself or any other kind of readings. So anyway, that's the Hush Tarot. And let's see, for her, I also work with, let me grab it down here. Jonasa Jaus, I think it's pronounced. I'm not sure. This is the 6th edition, and this is actually the 2nd version I got. I got the 5th earlier. I love the 5th. I think it may be my favorite, even though it's all green, and I would have thought, nah, I love green, my favorite color, but still, I think this other palette that she uses is really nice. But I don't know, something about that green palette, I'll get to that later. So, this is another deck I'm using for my protagonist. And it's another deck that is very unusual. She, the author or creator of this deck, based it on the Jodorowsky Marseille, I guess. So her idea of the meanings were not the Rider Waite or the Thoth, and they weren't even necessarily what I can consider Marseille meanings, perhaps. They are unique as well. And she does have a PDF guidebook, which I look at from time to time. She writes a lot about the flowers in this deck. Every card has a flower, and she talks all about why she chose that flower, which I find very interesting. However, you know, because I use the deck more intuitively, I don't read it exactly the way she intended. And she probably doesn't intend everyone read it the way she wrote it, but you know, the way she described it, each card. I get a little something out of her insights at times, but I don't always check her guidebook either. So that's the Jonasa Jaus 6th edition. Gorgeous cardstock. I don't know, it's kind of soft and bendy for maybe other people's tastes, and it is very long, so that makes it a little hard to shuffle. But I love this cardstock. I especially love it in the smaller 5th edition, which I'll show in a minute. Okay, so that's that. And then another main character in the deck gets the Crow Tarot. I love this deck. I have mass market version, and I just think it's beautiful. So this is for a male character in my book. It has just, for me, a very masculine, yet very sensitive feel, so that suits him well. Earthy, down to earth, but yet very visionary as well. The Crow Tarot. And hopefully I'll remember to list all these down below in the description box. There's another character in the deck for whom this one suits. Sort of. It's kind of exploratory for me. I want to be very respectful and careful when writing about people of a different race than myself. Well, I hate that word race, sorry. But I respect that this is a black person's perspective, black woman, and I love the art, I love the mood of this deck, and it has a place in my novel, so I work with this one. This is the Afro Goddess Tarot Arcanas, I believe. Yeah, this is a fun deck to work with and really beautiful. Shuffles lovely. It's great cardstock. As far as setting, I bought myself this little deck. This is by the same gentleman who made the Tildwick Tarot. I got a copy of the second edition of that this year as well. I didn't think I was going to ever get it. It was just a little too niche for my collection, but I decided to go ahead and get it. It's just a very unique and interesting deck. This is not the Tildwick, this is his Lenormand. I'm going to be careful of the glare there. This Lenormand is called The Legend of the Wizard Laird. And Laird is a Scottish word for lord, I believe. So it's basically a wizard lord. What his domain might look like. And I just really love the mystical quality of this art. It's pretty sepia. I like to say that's sepia, although I don't know if that's the common way to say it. And I don't know if you can see these too well. This one is my favorite, I think, Coffin. And it's of a skeleton lying like below a grate and maybe some dirt, and this goes really well with part of my novel. A skeleton featured in my novel. So when I saw this, I was like sold, but I love every single one of these cards. Maybe not so much the inserts are fine. These little inserts are cool, but the only cards I don't love, that's the storks. I'm gonna see if I get to any of them. The whip, and this is cool. The pantry. Or no, not the pantry. The mice. It's called the mice card, but I love the pantry here. Where's the? So there's the child. The people cards are not my favorite in this one, but I have a way to use them for my story. Oh, I love this one. The book. And where are they? Man, they're really hiding. Gotta see every single card in here. Okay, so the moon is always one of my favorite cards in any deck. That's a pretty cool one. I like that. We're totally on the bottom. There's one. you know, I think I can use these though because there's an ancestral component to my story, and these may be like the images, something like the images. Remind me of the images of the ancestors. That there's a bit of a mystery about that in the story. Yeah, there's another one. This deck actually comes with 2 sets of men and 2 sets of women. And they can face each other or face apart. No, they can face each other or face the same direction, I think. But I didn't go by that. I just went by my 2 favorites. Okay, that's the Legend of the Wizard Laird Lenormand. That's a big mouthful. That's not quite all. I do use this one a lot too, since there's a love story in my book. We use the Edvard Munch Tarot for Relationships. I don't know if that's exactly how you say his name, but it does come in these different directions, and that's beautiful, Zangar. You can see the creator put a different title in bold, and then she puts the traditional title and number below. And I do like a lot of her choices. I don't always quite use it the way she sees it, but mostly I go with it. She did offer a few extra cards. This might have been one of them. I think she has another Hanged Man, maybe. I can't remember. There was like 2 Emperors and I think 2 Justice cards, I want to say. Yeah. So you can check this one out if you're interested. I love this one. Another deck I've been using a lot of this year. It's called the Intuit Oracle. It's basically, it's called the Intuit Oracle with bonus trio because it has a primary deck that's basically Lenormand, and then like another set of 36 cards that are like a nuance of each Lenormand card, sort of a shade off, and then 3 other types of additional decks. Small ones, say, like Zodiac or planets, things like that. And this has been really cool to use for plotting, actually. So here's an example of one of the Zodiac cards. It says Taurus, Queen of Earth, also relates to the Hierophant, I believe. There at the bottom. So this would be an example. Oh yeah, there's an animal deck, too. So that's an example of, I don't know, I forget how many animals there are in here, maybe 12 or 16, or that's of course not an animal card. That's from the Lenormand birds, birds card. And then we have a nuance card, magnifying glass. So I just find it a really cool deck. You can use it all sorts of ways. It would probably make a good oracle. I like it for creative writing primarily. I don't read for other people too often. So I don't have that experience. I do read occasionally if someone asks me, and I thought about doing more reading for other people. This is the Lenormand snake, but it just hasn't been the right time, right? I have to focus on one thing at a time, and it hasn't been reading for others. Just gives me more time to keep learning and practicing, though. I did make the second channel in which I was trying to read for kind of according to certain topics, and I'd still love to do more with that, but I don't know, again, when the time will come for that. We'll see if it does, it doesn't. I definitely value what it does for me to read tarot and explore ideas through tarot aloud and give my voice to it. That's good healing for me, but I can't follow up on what I post all that well, right? This is a cool little deck called Uncover Your Past Lives Oracle. I like this one, not so much for past life work, which I haven't quite decided what I believe about that, but more for learning about different time periods and different people. I'll pull a random assortment of cards and do some research on that time period or people. So the back of the card has different groupings, and the front of the card is devoted to a certain subject with different shades of meaning of that subject. So this one says ritual sacrifice, and then at the top you have ritual priest, cannibal, human sacrifice, and headhunter. You can learn a lot of things about world cultures through just, playing around with this. I did a study. So what happened was I just felt like doing that. I felt like pulling some cards. And it ended up where I learned something I hadn't known about nuns. And medieval nuns specifically, because that was the time period it put me in. And it was fascinating and very inspiring. In fact, one of the nuns I studied basically had come up with her own spirituality, which was the closest anyone had put into words what I had come up with as well. And that was, I'll put her name down below. Anyway, she's fascinating and very, very ahead of her time. She blew me away. That was the thing. So many nuns went into it to get educated. That was the only way for them to get educated as women of their time. And I was really surprised to learn that there were nuns who couldn't pay, like their families couldn't pay the abbey or the nunnery for their admittance, and so they were brought in as nuns, but they had to do housework. And that was really, one of these cards led me into that. It had like housework or something listed, as well as abbey, and I don't know, I just found out, I didn't know that about nuns, So I've really enjoyed this deck. Again, I'll list who that's by down below. So lastly, a few decks that I'm really pretty new to, but looking forward to doing more with. Well, before I go there, let me just quickly show you the Jonasa Jaus 5th edition in green, which I adore. I don't know, there's just something about the darker greens and the black with all of it. I don't know, it just makes me feel like I'm lost down deep in a forest, which suits me very well. I've been looking for a deck that would just take us into a forest, and it would be very mystical but not fantastical. So like the Lost Forest Tarot is beautiful. I've come close to wanting to get it a couple times, but it's a little too fantastic for what I'm looking for. I want to be able to feel like I see the bark falling off the trees, and I feel the mushrooms growing under my feet, and I smell the decay, and I sense the rays of sun breaking through the canopy, and I hear the birds. I want the forest to feel like it's very much alive and natural, not just fantastic beasts, which are awesome in themselves, of course, but I want to feel nature telling me its story in a tarot deck. If anyone wants to make that deck, or is an artist who would love to make that and wants to collaborate, I would come up with so many cool ideas for a deck like that. But if anyone ever sees one of those type of decks come out on Kickstarter or something, please tell me, because I probably won't be watching. That's a great Hierophant, isn't it? I just love this deck, and I love the other one as well. This is the 5th edition. It's a little smaller for the hands, and it is my favorite deck, one of my favorite decks to shuffle, because the softness of the cardstock. And of course, I love smaller decks. I've been really getting into smaller than average size decks. I have my own little list of decks that I own that are smaller than average, and when I'm in the mood for just shuffling, I wish I could show you that. It bridges really nicely when now you don't have it up in the air like that. Love this Jonasa Jaus deck. Another deck, so okay, now we're getting into the decks that I'm excited to learn more about. The Minoan Tarot. One of the things I got into at the beginning of the year was getting a few decks that deal with other cultures. So I got the Minoan, which I don't know if that's still in stock. It's an indie deck by the same maker as the Dark Goddess Tarot and the Crone Tarot, which are some of my favorite decks. The Minoan and the Journey into Egypt deck. Oh, I love these. So that's who it's by. Lorenzi-Prince. And then there was a couple others. I was thinking about getting the Byzantine. I didn't do that yet. And I can't remember if I got another one. But I'll show you a few of these. I'm looking forward to studying this deck. I love this deck, in principle anyway, because the Minoans are my kind of people. Like, they weren't all about warfare. There were a few early civilizations that did not, make great fortresses, or I forget what I read now, but she has a really good explanation in her book. I don't know, my history's not great on this subject, but I am learning it. and that's one of the reasons I wanted this deck. But I love how they emphasize the beauty and enjoyment of life. So it really, to me, is a very inspiring deck to work with. That's the way I want to live my life, to be at peace with all people and to appreciate nature and dance and sing and enjoy good food and good storytelling, although I do go a bit darker in my storytelling because human beings are not all love and light, are they? And I like to kind of explore that as well. But yeah, this is a really cool deck. And let's see, another deck I'm interested in getting into. I think there's just two more here. Is the Shamanic Medicine Oracle. This one's been around for a long time. I took a long time getting it, as I do with a lot of these decks. Most of the decks I'm still getting are ones that have been on my list for years. And that's another thing that I really want to talk about, maybe in another video, is how I've kind of overcome the whole FOMO thing, fear of missing out, and I've also overcome my desire to own older decks, because I've really come to accept that I came into tarot when I came into tarot, and this is my era to enjoy it, and my collection will probably slow down. I won't collect as many decks. I'll keep going deeper with the ones I have, and I want to wear them all out until they're soft and buttery and falling apart. And so it's okay with me if I don't keep up with everything coming out there, and I don't go searching eBay or wherever for older out of print decks. I'm made my peace with that for the most part. Sure, there's occasional a deck that might feel very historical and might feel like it would teach me a lot about the history of tarot. For instance, like the Golden Dawn tarot or some of these historical decks. I'd like to maybe own an original Aquarian tarot at some point. If I find it for sale, at a rummage sale or something, I would snap that up. But I no longer feel like, oh gosh, all these great decks from the past, I have to own them, or all these great decks that are coming out, I have to get them. I think it's because I have such a large collection now. I have something for just about every interest and every thing I want to do a reading on. I have pretty much a great deck for that now. Occasionally there's still something like, I don't feel like I have a deck for this, and then I have fun searching for what might be a good deck, and I learn about some new ones that are out there. So this is the Shamanic Medicine Oracle deck, and I think it's beautiful, but I also just want to keep learning more about how practicing shamans see the world and the other world, and any ideas they have for connecting in that way intrigues me. Okay, there's one more here. The last but not least, we have the Story Medicine Tarot. Let's see, I wanted to show you the backs because I think it's a fun little match. This is the first one, and she's got another one out, which is like a second. She calls it a second edition, but it's actually like a continuance on the same theme, and that one's subtitled Animal Woman. But I do plan to get that one soon. These are pricey decks, I won't lie, but they are that good, linen finish that kind of holds up to everything. So it should last a long time. And I just think this is a phenomenal deck for the kind of work I'm doing on myself and on the stories I'm writing. So women empowerment, basically, as well as like a shamanic bent, towards interacting with the world. I just think it's fascinating. Story Medicine Oracle. Story Medicine Tarot. I keep saying that wrong. Really excited to work more with this one in the coming months and years, and get any additional ones. She's planning a total of 4, so she has 2 out, and she's planning 2 more, and they all have the same back, so they can be, mixed however you want to do it. I think that pretty well covered my update. Again, I just want to give everyone a big wave hello and thumbs up. Keep going with what you're doing. And I'm rooting for all of you to have your best year, your best month, your best week, day, and life. And if you want to leave a comment, I'd love to hear what you're up to, or shoot me, a note about what videos you've made recently in case I've missed them. I'll take some time in the next month, hopefully, to kind of catch up on a few people's channels. It's back to school season, so I have 2 kids returning to grade school, what is it, grade 9 and grade 7. And then I have a daughter going off to her 3rd year in college, and another daughter going to grad school. And then my son's still at home and working. So we have busy life here, but I always like to squeeze in some time for my tarot peeps, and I hope to hear from you soon. Take care. Till next time, I wish you all the best.